Come join me on another adventure.
Okay, picture this. A river so twisted, so shallow, and so completely overgrown that it looks like it's totally impassable. Now imagine you have to design a steamboat to navigate it. And not just to survive, but to turn that impossible trip into a huge tourist attraction. Well, today we're going to dive into that incredible story of 19th century engineering on Florida's Ocklawaha River. You know, this wasn't just some boring boat ride from point A to point B. The passengers who actually took this journey, they called it a jungle cruise. And yeah, that was long before Disney ever made the term famous. This was a real adventure into a hidden, almost prehistoric-looking world, and it was only possible because of some of the most specialized boats ever built. And that's really the big question here, isn't it? It's this classic conflict, human ingenuity versus the absolute wildness of nature. How on earth did engineers solve the puzzle of putting a steam-powered ship somewhere it just really shouldn't be able to go? To really get the solution, first, you have to appreciate the problem. And the problem, in this case, was the Ocklawaha River itself. It wasn't a river in the way we usually think of one. It was more like a floating obstacle course. I mean, this river just threw everything at you. We're talking about passages so narrow that the boat would literally scrape against both banks at the same time. Then so tight, you'd basically have to pivot on a dime. And then you had sections so shallow, you felt like you could probably just get out and walk. And the whole time, you're under this thick canopy of cypress trees, with branches hanging down right over your head like a ceiling. Yeah, let's be super clear about this. A normal steamboat, like one of those big, wide Mississippi River boats, it wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes out here. It would have gotten stuck, snagged on logs, and absolutely shredded by the branches. So the question isn't just how they navigated it, it's how they engineered a boat that could actually thrive in a place like this? And the answer, of course, was you don't use a standard boat at all. You build something completely different, something brand new, a vessel that's perfectly adapted to its wild environment. So let's break down exactly how they pulled it off. All right, first challenge, the shallow water. In a lot of places, the river bottom was just a few feet below the surface. The solution was kind of brilliant in its simplicity. Just build a boat that barely sits in the water. They designed these steamers with what's called a super shallow draft, which means most of the boat just floated right on top. And just how shallow are we talking? Get this, 3 feet. That's it. That's about the depth of the shallow end of a swimming pool. These things were basically steam-powered rafts, designed to just skim right across the surface. Amazing. Okay, so you solved the depth problem. Awesome. But what do you do about that thick, low-hanging roof of tree branches? You can't exactly go around it. So, you know what they did? They decided to go right through it. The upper decks and the cabins were heavily reinforced, basically turning the boat into a slow-moving battering ram that could just nudge the branches out of the way without getting all torn up. Then you had the whole maneuverability issue. Most people picture riverboats with those huge paddle wheels on the sides, but on the Ocklawaha, those would get smashed against the riverbanks or tangled up in underwater logs in no time. So they moved the paddle wheel to the stern, the very back of the boat. This kept it protected, and it gave the captain incredible control to pivot the boat around all those crazy tight bends. So when you put it all together, the picture becomes crystal clear. You can see it right here. For every single unique challenge the Ocklawaha presented, there was a direct and really clever engineering solution. It's a perfect example of form following function, where the environment itself dictated the entire design of the machine. Now, these design ideas weren't just on paper. They were brought to life in a whole fleet of famous ships. And we should probably talk about the most celebrated one of them all. Meet the Okeehumkee. Just listen to that name. It sounds like it just belongs on that ancient cypress-choked river, doesn't it? Well, this boat was the absolute pinnacle of Ocklawaha's steamboat design. The Okeehumkee was the undisputed queen of the Ocklawaha. It had it all, the shallow draft, those reinforced cabins, the stern paddle wheel. This boat, and others like one called the Alligator, they mastered this river so completely that they managed to turn this impossible journey into a regularly scheduled trip for tourists. They made it routine. So we've talked a lot about the engineering, but what was the point of all this? Why build these incredible boats in the first place? Well, it was all about creating an experience, something totally unique and unforgettable. Passengers back in the 19th century described the trip as otherworldly. And you can totally see why. Imagine you're gliding almost silently through this primordial swamp, Alligators are sunning on the banks, and exotic birds are in the trees so close you feel like you could reach out and touch them. For people who were used to cities and farms, this was like traveling to another planet. And really, that's the big takeaway here. The whole point wasn't just to get from one place to another. The real goal was to open up a hidden world. These specialized boats were basically the key that unlocked the Florida interior, letting tourists reach these amazing natural wonders like Silver Springs and see a part of America that almost no one had ever seen before. And this all leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. The Ocklawaha Steamboats weren't the fastest or the biggest boats around. They were just perfectly adapted to their purpose. It kind of makes you wonder, when have we done that again? From our deep-sea submersibles to the rovers we send to Mars, when have we reshaped our technology, not for pure speed or efficiency, but for the simple, profound goal of exploring the inaccessible?